Today we're going to learn about Chanukah, the inside story of Chanukah. What comes to mind when you think of Chanukah? What comes to mind? Dreidels, latkes, sufganiyot, candles, right. How about presents, right? Do you ever get an invitation, we request the honor of your presence, right? It's spelled S-E-N-T-S, right. Some people in America have a Chanukah bush, with a stocking, and after they light their candles, they eat their latkes under the sun, the Chanukah bush, right. Why do you think Chanukah is one of the most popular holidays in the United States among Jews?
A lot of presents.
It's the holiday season, right? They get presents one night, we get presents 8 nights, right? You know what? In Israel, it's even worse, right? Maccabee beer, Maccabee soccer team, right? The Israeli Olympic Games are called the Maccabean Games, right? An irony of history, right? Because the Maccabees fought against the Greeks, right? A guy comes to the kotel on a motorcycle, puts on a cardboard kippah, puts a note on the wall, goes out, takes off the kippah and zooms off. There was a guy standing there, he was dying to know what it said in that note. He didn't think it was right. A guy puts a note on the wall, take it out and read it. He didn't think it was right. Some young kid was over there. He had no qualms about it. Takes it on the wall, looks at it, throws it on the floor. Ah, it's on the floor, picks it up, right? What does it say? Maccabee soccer team should win the finals, right? Right? So sometimes I ask myself, in Israel they used to have a relay race years ago. A guy comes from Modi'in, where the Maccabees live, with a torch, and he runs a certain distance and gives it to another guy, relay, until the guy comes to the Kotel Plaza and they light the giant menorah. Right? Sometimes I ask myself, did we win or did the Greeks win? Sometimes I think the Greeks won, right? The truth is really the opposite. The Maccabees were not he-men. They were yeshiva students with thick glasses, right? They didn't fight the Greeks at first. They fought the Hellenists. You know what the Hellenists were? The Hellenists were Jews who adopted Greek culture. They actually built a temple on the Temple Mount in honor of Zeus, right? They had sports, Greek style, if you know what that means, right? The Greeks were very liberal. When they conquered other nations, they said, you can continue to worship your idols, right? They're very liberal. You got your gods like my gods. Just put a statue of Zeus in your temple. Don't you want to worship the stronger God? Our God beat you. We're stronger than you, right? Only when they came to Judah did they try to destroy the dominant culture. Why? Because there's an inherent conflict between Greek culture and Torah. Greek culture and Torah are diametrically opposed. Greek culture sees man in the center of the universe, man's body, sports, statues, man's mind, philosophy, the thinker. What's he thinking about? Where did I leave my clothes? Torah sees God in the center of the universe. And that competition is the story of Chanukah. And in the end, we won. We won. Who taught the world morals and ethics, if not the Jews, right? Certainly not Sparta, not even Athens, not the Romans, not the Persians, right? If someone would stop one of their warriors on his way to pillage, rape, and murder, ask him, what right do you have, philosophically speaking, to go into that city and pillage, rape, and murder? What would he say? No. Very simple. I'm stronger, right? Might makes right. And if might makes right, and you have the might, then right or wrong, you're always right, right? Wrong. That's what they believe, right? Who taught the world that might does not make right? Who taught the world that right makes might? Was it the Romans? Was it the Greeks? The Persians? It was the Jews, right? Right? We taught the world morals and ethics, right? Our Torah and prophets gave the Western world, love your neighbor, proclaim liberty throughout the land. All men are created equal. It's a Jewish concept, right? The United Nations is not known to be pro-Israel. That's the understatement of the year. But there's a wall called the Isaiah Wall in the United Nations. They will beat their swords into plowshares. No more war. Who is Isaiah? One of our boys. Our prophets, our Torah, we taught the world morals and ethics. So the Jews did not leave behind memorials of war. They left behind morals and ethics. That was the mark they left on the world. And that's the reason why we don't celebrate Chanukah with a military parade. And we don't see the Maccabees as beer drinkers, right? We do not overtly stress the military victory, although it was a tremendous miracle, right? A small group of soldiers overcame the Greek Empire, right? Unbelievable, right? So, first of all, it didn't last very long. The Jewish kingdom was forced to ally itself to Rome, and less than 200 years after the story of Chanukah, the Romans razed our temple and exiled us until today. So why celebrate the victorious battle when we lost the war, right? We're still in exile, all right? But more than that, in addition, The Jews are one of the only nations in the world that never glorified war. We never glorified war. From the American Indians to the Eskimos to the Japanese, right? Who are their heroes? The best fighter, the best killer, the best hunter, fastest gun in the West. He died with his boots on. Right. And Jews never glorified war. We hated war. We fought very well when we had to. We never glorified it. What's the name of the Israeli Air Force? Sahal, Sava Haganah Yisrael. Jewish Defense Force, right? Right? Israeli Defense Force. We're defending ourselves, that's all. I mean, they may call us in the United Nations, right? The aggressors, right? But does anybody really believe in the United Nations that the Israelis are going to attack someone if they don't attack us? Of course not. All right, right? Right. We venerate King David not because he was a warrior, but in spite of the fact that he was a warrior. You know, it was his idea to build the temple. No, God didn't command to build the temple. We had the tabernacle, the tent that was rebuilt. And David says, "I'm living in a marble house, in a marble palace, and God's presence in a tent." So he got money from all the tribes, and he bought the land, and he was going to build the temple. And God said, "Sorry, Dave, you can't build it because your hands are full of blood." David was a murderer. He fought wars for God, right? But your hands are full of blood. Your son Solomon, he's a man of peace. He's going to build it, right? It's called after his name. It was his idea. Right? We say in the benching on Sukkot, Harachamanu Yokim Lonu, and Sukkot David Hanafeles. God should establish the Sukkah of David that fell down. What's the Sukkah of David that fell down? The temple, right? He even wrote a psalm to be said when the dedication. We say every morning, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. You know what that means? It's a song for the dedication of the temple for David. He wasn't there during the dedication of the temple, right? But he wrote a song for it, right? But we don't venerate King David because he was a warrior, but in spite of the fact that he was a warrior. So our rabbis stressed the miracle of the lights, the fact that we illuminate the world with our Torah. That's the main point of Chanukah and our world victory. The story of Chanukah begins with the death of Alexander the Great. He treated the Jews very well. The Talmud relates that the enemies of the Jews told Alexander that the Jews are rebelling against him. So he came to seize Jerusalem. We had a high priest named Shimon HaTzadik. Name sounds familiar? That's what we're on, right? Shimon HaTzadik was one of our greatest high priests. He came to greet him in full ceremonial dress. And when Alexander saw the high priest, he got off his horse, says the Talmud, and he bowed down on the ground. And his generals say, "Why are you bowing down to this Jew?" He said, "Every time I go to battle, I see in my dream before the battle, this Jew appears and he tells me I'm going to win the battle." So the Medrash says, he said, the Jews are not loyal. We are loyal. Prove your loyalty. Put my statue in your temple. So Shimon HaTzadik says, we don't put any statues in our temple. We'll do one better. Every Jewish baby boy that's born this year, we'll name Alexander. That will show our loyalty for you. And since then, Alex or Ascender has been a very common Jewish name. You know people by that name, a very common Jewish name, right? After the death of Alexander, his kingdom was divided among the warlords, and Judah came under the jurisdiction of Antiochus of Syria. There's a book called the Megillah of Antiochus. It's not part of the scriptures, but it's an old manuscript that's reprinted in many Sidurim. Tells the story of the Greeks entering Jerusalem and prohibiting the observance of Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, New Moon, and Brit Milah, circumcision, under the penalty of death. Now, what's unique about these three things? They're symbols of the special relationship between God and the Jewish people. The Greeks were liberals, right? You can have your religion, our religion, but they're all the same, right? You say you're special. We don't like that. You don't like that. You're not special, right? You can have your temple, right? We call it the Greek exile, right? Greek exile, we were in the land of Israel with the temple standing. It's the Greek exile, right? As long as you slaughter pigs on the altar and have contaminated oil for the menorah, everything's fine, right? What's unique about these three mitzvahs? Shabbat is a symbol of our special relationship with God. Osi L'Olam, it's a symbol forever. The Chafetz Chaim compares Shabbat to an engagement ring. A girl gets engaged, she gets a ring, right? As long as that ring's on her finger, you know she's engaged. Even though she gets into a fight with her fiance, as long as that ring's on her finger, you know she's engaged. The minute you see her without the ring, you know the engagement's over, right? Another example would be the symbols. You know, before people were literate, every store has a symbol. Today we still have the stripe is the barbershop and the mortar and pestle is the drugstore, right? You come to the store and the symbol's there, but he's closed. You say he's on vacation. You come and you see the symbol's gone, you know he's out of business, right? The Shabbos is the symbol of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. Even if we don't keep all the Torah, as long as we keep Shabbos, that relationship is there. We stop keeping Shabbos, it's gone. And that's the history of the assimilation of American Jews. It didn't start with intermarriage. It didn't start with Jews for Jesus. It started with Shabbat. Someone once said, more than the Jew has kept the Shabbat has kept the Jew. Rosh Chodesh is celebrated because we have a lunar calendar. And the Jewish people are compared to the moon. The moon gets smaller and smaller, and then it gets bigger and bigger and smaller and smaller and bigger and bigger. It never totally disappears. It's always there. And when it faces the sun, it's lit up. When its back is to the sun, it's dark. The Jewish people are always here. And when we face the Almighty, things go well for us. We turn our backs to God, bad news for the Jews. That's the symbol of the Jews. And circumcision, right? Our covenant with God, the symbol in the flesh. We can never forget we serve Him. King David was in the bathhouse and he said, I'm naked for mitzvahs. No kippah, no tzitzis, no tefillin, right? And he said, there's one mitzvah I take with me wherever I go. Circumcision, right? Right? Why is it specifically that part of the body? Because the greatest lust that a man has, the sexual urge, control it, subordinate it to God's will. Also because that's where the children are born. So we're making a covenant from all generations. So the Greeks forbade these three things. How did the Jews react? The Megillah tells us the unbelievable martyrdom the Jewish people underwent for these mitzvahs. One man was caught circumcising his son, and they hung him up with his wife to die in public. A woman circumcised her son and went up to the walls of the city and said, our covenant with God will never be broken, and she threw her son off and jumped off. Then the Megillah relates the story of 1,000 men, women, and children who hid in a cave so they should keep the Shabbat. When they were caught by the Greek soldiers, they said, come out, join us, eat with us, be equal status with us. The Jews replied, they'd rather keep their loyalty to the 10 Commandments they heard on Sinai and prefer to die. The Greeks then burned wood at the mouth of the cave and they all died from the smoke. This doesn't mean they didn't want to fight on Shabbos because of you're allowed to save your life, the preservation of fight, right? They knew they had no chance to win. They were ready to die for the sanctification of God's name. The Greek army was a world empire, right? You know, the Israeli Air Force is pretty good. What do you think they take on the combined armies of America, China, and Russia? Is that a good idea? I don't think so. Right. You fall off the Empire State Building. She tried to fly. Right? Forget it. So there's no way to fight the Greeks, so they gave their lives. What started the revolt? How did the revolt begin? The Megillah tells us Yochanan, the high priest, was enraged by the Greeks' defilement of the temple, the slaughter of pigs on the altar. He hid a narrow dagger under his cloak, and he went to see the governor. He said, I would like to make peace with you. I would like to join the Hellenists. The governor said, well, show your loyalty by slaughtering a pig on the altar. Show you change your heart, then I'll make you one of my officers. Yochanan replied, he's afraid the people will hear about it, they'll kill him. Let everybody leave. I'll do it in private, right? All the bodyguards left, all the soldiers left, and then he took out his dagger and proceeded to slaughter the pig. He killed the governor, right? He killed the governor. And trying to catch him, many Greek soldiers were killed by each other, and the revolt thus began. Says the book of Antiochus, Yochanan built a monument to commemorate this victory and inscribed the words Maccabee was victorious over the enemy. What does Maccabee stand for? Mi kamocha bo'elim Hashem. Who is like you among the mighty ones of God? It's by the song on the Red Sea. The revolt spread, and the mighty sons of Matisyahu, who was the son of Yochanan, fought with great valor, pushing back the Greek armies. Antiochus sent another army, who was also defeated. Most of the sons of Matisyahu died in battle. Eliezer drowned in the dung of the elephants he was killing. When Judah died, who was the most valorous of them all, they returned dejected to their father, who derided them for returning and joined them in battle. In the end, Antiochus fled his kingdom in shame, and wherever he went, he was called Haboreach, the one who ran away. That's the story in short. What was the point of the rebellion? So I heard from Noach Weinberg an explanation. They made decrees, no Shabbos, no circumcision, no Rosh Chodesh, and the Jews responded by giving their lives. They gave their lives for Shabbos, they gave their lives for Rosh Chodesh. But to fight the Greek army? How can you fight the Greek army? Right. The Israeli Air Force is pretty good. What do you think we take on the combined force of America, China, and Russia? Good idea? I don't think so. Right. That was the Greek army. So what made them change? Says Rav Noach, they were angered. They're slaughtering pigs on the altar. That made them angry. When you're angry, you go and you do it. Right. Said Rav Noach Weinberg, give me 10 angry men and I'll change the world. And he did. Right. Does assimilation make you angry? Does intermarriage make you angry? Does Jews for Jesus make you angry? Then do something about it, right? 10 angry men and I'll change the world. When they entered the sanctuary, they wanted to light the menorah. They couldn't find uncontaminated oil. Why the stress on the menorah? How about all the other vessels in the temple? You had an altar, you had meal offerings and wine libations and the animal sacrifice. Why just the altar, right? And incense. So the commentaries explain the light of the menorah symbolizes the fact that God's presence was in the midst of the people. The western light of the menorah never went out. They would light all 7 lights with the same amount of oil. It would burn all night long and go out in the morning. The western light stayed lit all day long. They would light the other room and put it out and light it again until the death of Shimon HaTzadik. This miracle happened, right? And the menorah symbolizes God's presence in their midst. And the Greeks knew that. So they went out of their way to contaminate all the oil so they couldn't light it, to demonstrate that God's presence is gone. So therefore, when they came back, the first thing they did was they wanted to demonstrate that God's presence has returned. How do you demonstrate that? By lighting the menorah. They miraculously found one little jar with the seal of the high priest on it. It should have lasted only 1 day, and it lasted 8 full days. They can make more. By the way, did you ever wonder why it took 8 more days to make oil? How long did it take to squeeze the olives? I mean, there were no olive trees in all of Israel. All of Jerusalem had to send a guy to the Galilee to get olive trees. I assume there were olive trees in Jerusalem, right? Why does it take 8 days to squeeze oil? You ever had that question before? All right, good question. All right, luckily there's a good answer. All right, so we know we have the red heifer, something that a person or an object that becomes contaminated with a dead body. You got to go through a process of the ashes of the red heifer mixed with water have to be sprinkled on it. And how long does that process take? 7 days. All right. So all the vessels to squeeze the olives were all contaminated. They couldn't make pure olive oil, right? So they had to sprinkle the red heifer on it. It took 7 days. On the 8th day, they had oil. They were able to make oil. That's why. Number 8 is very significant. 8 means above nature. You have 7 days of creation, 6 days of creation, Shabbat, and the 8 days, the 8 days of Chanukah is miracle. Bris Milah, we go above our nature. That's the idea. The rabbi stressed the miracle of the oil over the military victory. We mentioned the victory in our prayers, but every Jewish family lights the menorah for 8 nights to remember the divine presence returned to our temple. The commentator called Bach explains, the whole story began because the people started taking the temple service lightly. As a result, the Hellenists and Greeks succeeded in abolishing the temple service. Only after the Kohanim were ready to sacrifice their lives for the temple service, Hashem made this miracle, right? We have to take Torah seriously. They were taking it lightly and they weren't taking it seriously enough, and that's why God took it away from them. And after they showed Mesiras Nefesh, they were ready to give their lives, then he brought it back. Another thing is the Kabbalists talk of the mystical significance of the Chanukah lights. The original light of creation, God said, let there be light, right? It didn't last, right? It lasted, I think, 36 hours, and we have 36 candles of menorah. Is it 36? Is that the number? We count 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It comes out, I think it's 36. I forgot exactly. So that light was not the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon was not until the 4th day. That was a spiritual light where one could see from one end of the world to the other. And God said, that light is too good for the wicked to enjoy. I'm going to hide it away for the righteous in the world to come. By the way, where did he hide it? In the Torah, right? When you learn Torah, you see the light, right? You see the light, right? And the Torah opens up our spiritual light in our brains and our hearts. So the Chanukah lights are said to be connected to that holy light. That's why we cannot derive benefit from the Chanukah lights, right? Shabbos candles you're supposed to derive benefit from, but the Shabbos candle we have a shamus. We add an extra one that we shouldn't have benefit. I just want to go through on Chanukah we add in the prayers. We say Hallel every day, the full Hallel, the whole Hallel, and we add in the prayers. So we have in the Shemona Esrei and in the benching, the grace after meals, we say Allah Nissim v'Allah Porkon, on the miracles, on the salvation, Allah Gvuros, on the mighty deeds, Shuos, the victories, the Chamos, the wars that you made for our ancestors in those days and this time. In the days of Mordechai, the son of Yochanan, the high priest. Yochanan was the high priest, not Mordechai. Matisyahu. Matisyahu, the son of Yochanan, the high priest. Chashmonai Uvanav, the family was Chashmonai. When the wicked Greek kingdom came upon your people Israel, to make them forget your Torah, to make them break the laws of your desires. Did you know that the Greek kingdom was evil? Did they teach you that in school when you learned about the Greeks, that they were wicked? No. They were enlightened. They gave us sports. They gave us democracy, right? Philosophy, right? The Greeks enlightened us, right? We know they were wicked because we experienced it on our backs. We experienced it, right? Reminds me of an article I once read in the National Geographic about Germany. The Germans are gemütlicher. You know what gemütlicher means? Good-hearted. If you ask a German for directions, he'll smile. Go right there, straight to the gas chamber. He'll tell you where to go. We know how good-hearted the Germans are. We learned all about it, right? To make you forget your Torah and to take you away from the laws. Was that the goal of the Greeks? I thought they wanted world domination, right? And the Jews got in their way, right? No, their goal was to make you forget the Torah. They didn't want anything special. Everybody's the same. And you, with your great mercy, stood upon them in their troubles. You fought their battles. You judged their judgment. You took their revenge. You gave over the mighty in the hands of the weak. So the Jews were weak. The sons of Matthias were very mighty, but most of the Jews were weak soldiers. They were yeshiva students with the glasses, right? Many in the hands of the few. Unclean in the hands of the pure. The wicked in the hands of the tzaddikim, right? The zaydim, the bad ones in the hands of those who study your Torah. And to you did you make a great name and holy in your world. To your people Israel did you make a salvation like today. And afterwards your sons came to your sanctuary. They cleaned out your sanctuary from the idolatry. They purified your temple. They lit candles in your courtyard, right? And they established the 8 days of Chanukah to thank and to praise your holy name. So 8 days of Chanukah, we're supposed to thank God. Not only for the miracle of Chanukah. These are 8 days to thank God for everything. You know, when we light the candles, I sit with my family, what do we have to thank God for today? Right. Thank God for this and that. How much do we have to thank Him for? It's 8 days of thanking God. There's a famous question, since there was enough oil in the menorah for 1 day, so the miracle was only 7 days, it wasn't 8 days. So why do we have 8 days? You only have 7 days, right? You ever heard that question before? Famous question of the Beis Yosef, and there are hundreds of answers to that question, right? I know Rabbi, every year, every night of Chanukah, we give a different answer, right? One answer is that they divided it up into 8 parts, and they did a little every day. One answer is that the fact that oil burns is also a miracle, right? One Hasidic rabbi says they lit candles in the courtyard. The menorah's not in the courtyard. The one is right. They wanted to show everybody the miracles, so they took the menorah outside. They lit it outside. Now, if you light a menorah outdoors, what happens to it? The wind blows it out, right? Today we have these glass cases, so it just shouldn't go out in the wind, right? That was a miracle that stayed. Many, many miracles involved. When we light the candles, we sing a song called Mo'os Sur. And Mo'os Sur is very interesting because Mo'os Sur is the history of all the exiles. When we have an exile and we're saved from that exile, right? That is a light which we can merit to the final exile. These lights they were lighting, ala nisim for the miracles, aniflos, the wonders, shuos, nilchamos, the wars, the victories that you made for our ancestors in those days and this time, for your holy Kohanim. All 8 days of Chanukah, these candles are holy. We have no permission to use them, only to see them alone, to thank and to praise your great name for your miracles and wonders and your salvations. Mo'os Sur Yeshuasi, right? The rock of my salvation, right? God is called the rock. Tzur Tamim Polo in the book of Dvorim, God's called the rock. When they wrote the Declaration of Statehood for State of Israel, right? Their Declaration of Independence, actually, there was a big controversy in the Knesset. Should you mention God's name or not, right? The religious party said, if you don't mention God's name, we're not signing. The secular party says, if you do mention God's name, we're not signing, right? They made a compromise. It doesn't mention God's name. It says, with trust in the rock of Israel. Now, the rock of Israel is ambiguous. We say, who's the rock of Israel? It means God. They say it means the Israeli army, whatever. Right? To you, it is beautiful to praise. Establish your house of prayer, and there will we bring thanksgiving offerings. We're preparing for the slaughter, right? For those who are blaspheming you, the enemies, right? And then I'll complete with the song, the dedication of the altar. So Chanukah means, Chanukah Chafei is the 25th day of Kislev. Chanukah was dedication. They rededicated the temple. So, in fact, the Torah reading on Chanukah is the princes. When they dedicated the tabernacle in the desert, so every day one of the other princes brought a sacrifice, right? So there were 12 days. We read the first 8 days each one, and then the 8th day we read 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But it says we're dedicating the altar. So we start off Jewish history. It starts off with Egypt. Ra'o safo nafshi. Much trouble has my soul satiated. Yogon kolchi kilo. My strength was consumed with grief. Chaye moru b'koshe. They embittered my life with harsh labor. B'shibud malchus egla. When we were in the kingdom of Egla, that's Egypt. U'b'yodo agdoilo, your great hand, hotzia skuli, you took out the treasured nation. Chel paro v'chol zaro, the army of Pharaoh and all of his children. Yodu kevim mitzula. They went down like a stone in the waters. That's the Red Sea. The first exile was Egypt. What came afterwards? Babylon. Devir kotsho heviani. You brought me to your holy place. Kam sholo shakati. I wasn't quiet over there. But no gisiklani. This taskmaster came and brought me into exile. Because I worshipped idols, right? And Yael Rama Sakti, I poured wine, right? On my that was poisonous, right? Kemat Shavarti, almost was finished. Kate Bovel's rule, the end of Babylon came, the Kate Shivim Shalati. After 70 years, we came back. The Babylonian exile was 70 years, and we went back. Who's in charge now? Who took over from the Babylonians? The Persians, right? Karos Kamas Tirosh. The towering cypress was Agagite, Agagi, Bikesh Agagi ben Amdosa, the son of Amdosa. Haman wanted to kill me. And it turned out to be a stumbling block for him. And his pride, his arrogance was stilled. Rosh Yemini says, so you lift up the Benjamite, Mordechai, and the enemy's name was erased. Rov Bonav, Kinyanav, all his sons and his possessions, Allah Isa, you're hung up on a tree. That's Purim. Well, it comes after that, Chanukah. Yevonim nikbitzu alai. The Greeks gathered upon me. Azaibi me Chashman in the days of the Chashmanites. Ports the Chomas Migdolai. They made pritzos. They made breached the walls of my temple. Timu and Chashmanayim. They made all the oil contaminated. Minoisa kankana was left over in the little jar. Nasan neisa Shoshanim. A miracle was made for the Shoshanim, the roses, the Jewish people. B'nei bino yemei shbona. The men of understanding. The 8 days kavu shir and honor. They set aside for song and for rejoicing. So now we have the light of Chanukah, the last holiday before the exile. 785. The last holiday before the exile, before the destruction of the second temple, right? Right before the destruction of the second temple, 200 years before, right? This light of Chanukah takes us into exile. Chasov Zeroa Kodshecha. The last stanza is about the Mashiach. We're in the Roman exile now. That's the last one. Bear out your holy arm. Korav Keita Yeshua, bring the end of the salvation close. Take the revenge. Nakom Nikmas Avadecha, take the revenge of your servants, Mi'uma Rishar, from the evil nation, from the Romans. Oh Chalon Yeshua, we're waiting such a long time for your salvation. Ein Kesli Me'ara, there's no end to the days of evil. The Chayadmon B'Sel Salmon, the red one, the Edomite, throw it to the bottom. Hokin Lona Roy Shiva, and established by the 7 shepherds. So here we have the Jewish history, every holiday. The last holiday, chronological order, the final light before destruction of the second temple, 2,000 years of tears, blood, tears, and sweat, right? The light of Chanukah is a spiritual light. The Jews are still going through that exile, but the light of Chanukah is a spiritual light, right? In the most trying situations, we have to remember this, right? That Hashem is with us, and this realization will light up our dark exile and gives us hope for the future. Thank you very much.